Welcome in. This is season 5, episode number 40 of the Outlap F1 podcast. We are as always, proud members of the Ship It Studios podcast network, and this is the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix. Oh, it did it again. I got to get better at that. But it's the Las Vegas Grand Prix race review. We have survived it, the good, the bad, and maybe even some of the ugly. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Sir, it is good to see you. On the other side, I felt kind of this morning like I had a Vegas hangover. The last time I was there, I will never forget. I saw a guy in an elevator. We were just going from like floor 1 to floor 3. I think we were in the Mirage. And he looks at me with a straight face and he goes, "This fucking town will just eat you alive." And I swear I kind of felt like that at some point during this weekend. But, sir, it's good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Last night, I have like a little stovetop espresso pot now. And I made some espresso at like 8 o'clock at night, which ended up not being a great decision because I was wired and the race was over and I still couldn't go to sleep. So I was up until like 3 or 4 in the morning.
The mocha draft coffee that comes in the special pressurized container was what I was using. And I normally don't drink coffee or, you obviously have seen the show before. You see I drink Coca-Cola like it's probably going out of style. But beyond soda, I usually don't drink huge things of caffeine. I don't usually drink Mountain Dew or anything like that. So coffee for me was like, zip! So that's how I got through the qualifying, being when it was. And then, you're just kind of there, and it's like, it's 4:45 in the morning, and you can't shut your brain off. Yeah, that's what you get when we turn the clocks upside down. But we managed to do it, and we managed to get through all of it. So if you found our show, welcome along. We're glad to have you, especially since we're coming in on the end of the season, fast and furious. So if you found the show, you can find us on all sorts of different social media, Twitter, X, whatever the heck it's called. We're there. We tweet stuff. We put stuff out. So Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle. You can also find it on Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you like what you see, the swing arm, I promised the swing arm was going to be done. I have kept my word. My Mike Z artwork painting of Lando Norris. See that's where the boom is. Just to kind of break the fourth wall there. But that's my background now. For the time being, my rear end is grateful to be sitting on a couch as opposed to my dining room chairs. But anyway, if you're on YouTube and you like what you see and you like what you hear, especially after I said all that, do us a favor, click the like and subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify and you like what you're hearing, do us a solid, give us a 5-star review. It just helps us come a little bit up, a little bit better in search results. Lets us get our content to you that much quicker. So we would appreciate it if you'd like to do that. You can email the show as always, chatnow@outlapf1.com. We'll take you there. You can peruse the website, www.outlapf1.com. We'll take you there. As just a reminder to thank the continuous monetary support that we get from our monetary supporters, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of what we call the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation and help us buy stuff like this and move around and design where our new recording places are going to be. You can see our link tree in our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1, $5. Like I said, anything that we get goes into making stuff like this happen. Doing the remote broadcast from hotels and when we're on site, when we get lucky enough to go to a race. So we appreciate anything you would like to give. In terms of people who do pay us to actually read stuff, the good folks at Manscaped, Christmas is coming. Thanksgiving is next week. That's freaking nuts. I actually had to go to 3 different stores to get all the accoutrement for the one dish that I am responsible for Thanksgiving, but I'm making a ton of it. So I'm now fully equipped for that. But anyway, back to my point, Christmas is coming. If you have somebody who needs some product, check out the good folks at Manscaped. You can get our code OUTLAP, OUTLAP, get 20% off, get free shipping. It's all good there. Our final sponsor, our buddy Vincenzo Landino, who was tweeting all about the race. I don't think he was actually there. The F1guy.com is the website. F1 quality merch, not necessarily the F1 quality price. If you're like me and you have some F1 merch, you know how pricey it can get, especially if you're a Ferrari guy. He's got some great stuff, so go ahead and check that out if you would like to. All right, so we made it through the particulars. And we didn't hit any manhole covers. Look at that. All right, so we will start with the headline of the day. Cody, I like what you've got here. I think it's very appropriate, so I'll let you go first. What you got?
All right, my headline of the day is that the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend was what I like to call Schrodinger's shit show, because throughout the entire weekend it was and was not. On the downside, we had, over the top, sometimes cringy theatrics, which some people like more than others. Not really my thing. Track problems, penalty problems, problems for fan access. But all of that gave way to one hell of a race. And I thought it was probably one of the best of the season. So it all ended up being worth it.
Yeah, so my headline is kind of on the same way, and just to expound, if you don't know what Schrodinger is, Schrodinger refers to Schrodinger's cat, which is a cat that in the same moment could be, air quote, both dead and alive, depending on what you do to it. You can look up that scientist, and you can look up all of that research and find out all that cool, nerdy stuff about that, but I figured I would expound on that, because that's kind of what I do. But anyway, my headline of the day, Vegas-themed here. So F1 had to double down after the first roll at the table, which came up snake eyes. Yikes. And then they hit the double sevens just when you thought all was lost. So way to literally pull a show off when you thought all was literally falling apart around you in the true spirit of Las Vegas. If you could have anything like Las Vegas, this kind of Grand Prix weekend, I think, just summarizes all of it. But anyway, we will get into all of this in just a little bit. Normally, this is the part where we jump into the qualifying recap and actually start to talk about all of the measured things that happened during the weekend. But we have to start. We cannot go forward without talking about practice, specifically free practice one. I was excited. I'm sure a lot of people were excited. The stands were packed. We were ready to go. We actually got the cars out on time. We got all of the approvals that looked like done on time. And then 9 minutes in, bang, red flag. Carlos Sainz's car stopped dead on the track. We didn't realize at the time nearly how damaged that car really was. And then all of a sudden, I remember thinking, I'm like, well, this is taking a little bit longer than normally. Like, I know this is the first year and it's the first time that you're kind of retrieve a car, but this just doesn't feel right. And then I see on the McLaren pit wall, they've got, text messages of all the communications to the drivers. And I see one come in for Lando, and they said, manhole cover at turn 13. This might be a lengthy delay. And as soon as I saw that, I went, oh no, it's Baku all over again. I've lived through that. It doesn't just mean they have to fix the one. It means they have to now check all the other ones, because if one can fail, they can all fail. And that's basically what ended up happening. So Cody, take us through kind of what you saw and what you thought was going on at the time, and then we'll kind of get into the fallout of the free practice one.
Well, free practice one was on a little late for me, I seem to remember. So I didn't catch it until pretty much when you were talking to me about it the following morning. But yeah, Carlos Sainz nails a manhole cover. We've seen this issue before at other street circuits where manhole covers are not properly secured, and especially with these this current era of cars where ground effect is the main way that the cars produce downforce, produces something of a suction effect under the car. It's going to suck up non-secure manholes. Apparently, one got dislodged, was propped up, and Carlos Sainz was unfortunate enough to hit it. Absolutely destroyed the bottom of his car. Apparently, the damage was very extensive. It was not just the bodywork that was damaged; it was the battery system. Apparently, it came up so far that it potentially damaged his seat, is what I was reading.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, really, really nasty damage to the car. And as you said, there's a lot of manhole covers, I'm sure, going down the strip and around the circuit. And if one fails, any number of them could fail. So then you have to go around and you have to check everything. And so what ended up happening is that work took so long to complete that they ended up calling free practice 1 a wash with only 9 minutes of track time. And I believe that later on with free practice 2, they ended up extending the session, right, to 90 minutes.
Yeah. They made FP2 90 minutes, which was what I remember tweeting about it at the time. I'm like, expect another session, either FP2 or FP3, to get elongated, because with no support races and no other running, there's no other way for the teams to actually get any sort of data in. So we knew we were going to get going at some point. It was just going to be a question of, was it going to be today, or, this was Thursday, Friday. So whether it's going to be, again, earlier Friday morning, or was it going to be, were we going to go into the Friday, Saturday and make like maybe a 2-hour FP3, free practice, and then go into qualifying. So that was kind of the only, I think, on track running question. But the bigger question was, well, how are you going to fix these manhole covers? Because they apparently weren't welded. They were secured with concrete, and it was the concrete fitting around the manhole cover is what failed, not necessarily the attachment of the manhole cover to the manhole itself. So you ended up with, and you've seen the shots probably around social media of all these guys standing around a hole trying to figure out kind of what to do. So they ended up, they came up with a solution where we're basically going to take the manhole covers off. We'll fill it in with asphalt. We'll pound it down, and, we'll make sure that at least it's level enough. And that's what they ended up pretty much doing for all of them. This was the only issue that popped up. That's the good news. The not so good news was because free practice 2 was supposed to start at midnight local time, which would have been 2 a.m. here. And what ended up happening was that was pushed back by almost 2 hours to allow all this extra work that needed to be done to get done. So now we're talking our time 4 a.m., their time 2 a.m. And because this is the first year of a venue, and they didn't necessarily build in a whole lot of flexibility in their scheduling and their flexibility of staffing, they didn't have any sort of recourse other than to unfortunately close their facilities off from the fans, despite telling them to kind of stick it out. So 1:30, this announcement comes out that says, we have no choice but to clear you out of wherever you're at, and you have to leave, at least leave the official grounds, which everybody eventually did, much to their chagrin. Pretty much the from a PR perspective, you really couldn't have started your relationship with the fandom really a whole lot worse. 9 minutes of running, followed by a 3.5-hour delay, followed by now kicking everybody out, and now the cars will come on out. If you're a fan and you only had a Thursday ticket, you have a total right to be upset. I can't put it any plainer than that. I tried to put myself in that shoe and try to feel what that would have felt like, and I would have been kicked in the gut, especially had I spent what I knew it cost to get there. But Cody, what was your take on this black eye for the day? I don't know about for the event overall yet.
It definitely doesn't look good. I feel like the organizers probably should have, with how late into the night this stuff was going, taken something into account that, hey, maybe there could be delays. Hey, this is our first time doing this. Things might not go according to plan. Maybe we need some people on another shift who can take over running facilities so that fans can actually stick around to see the sessions that they paid for. I did see some posts on online about people getting really creative with how they were going to try to stick around and watch the cars, like just continuously going up and down the escalators in pretty much like a big loop, pretending like, oh yeah, I'm leaving, I'm on my way out, and doing that for as long as they could to actually see the cars go around the track. So yeah, I tip my cap to that creativity. But overall, a mess of a situation. I would have also been livid if I had been in
Yeah.
that situation where you travel all that way, you pay all that money, you get there, something happens, and you're left with 9 minutes of track time out of all of that. And I seem to remember that they weren't going to do any refunds or anything like that either. Gave a voucher for online merchandise, or their online store for merchandise, I believe, which
Yeah,
better than
the
nothing, but kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
yeah the track issued a statement basically kind of recapping the events of what occurred, and then the next day, instead of they issued another statement. Apparently, it was about 600 words long. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know that I necessarily want to give this any more attention than it already got, but um, it didn't include any sort of apology or any sort of statement of contrition that we're sorry that this happened and we'll try to make it right or anything like that. As a result, there has been a Las Vegas law firm that has filed a air quote class action lawsuit. Now, you can file anything on any day at any court. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to win. I would imagine that there is probably language that would be included with anybody's ticket that would kind of cover or indemnify the track from it. Interesting to see kind of where that goes. It was just kind of, I'm wondering if this is a law firm that has decided to try to stand on someone's shoulders and call themselves tall to try to get some notoriety here. But because I don't think they have a whole lot of a case, unfortunately, with this type of thing. I remember the first time I went to a ball game and I looked at the back of the ticket, and there's all this little tiny wording, and what it basically says is, "You're pretty much screwed over, and we have total control over what's going to happen if, in case something doesn't go according to plan. So if the game gets rescheduled and we reschedule it, this may be good or may not be good to redeem admission for that replacement game if it gets played." So again, I don't know that there's anything that is going to come out of that. We'll follow it, obviously. Um, yeah, from the fans' perspective, again, as I said before, you have every right to be upset. Very kind of ridiculous as it turned out, but that is also what we talked about. What I would put in there, that is a classic first year venue thing. They will learn from it. I have no doubt they will learn from it. And Cody, you mentioned the people going up and down the escalator, and I had to kind of smile when you said that because, look, I know that I'm no longer a youth any longer. As your cat obviously would agree with that. But here's my advice to the youth of this country. If you're going to do something that's kind of nefarious, you ought not post it so everybody could see what it was you were doing. Because the next day, the organizers put out these like red curtains around those exact escalators, preventing exactly the thing that you were trying to do the night before. So how about you just do your thing, but keep it to yourself. Like if you're gonna do that, just be quiet about it. But I found it funny nonetheless. Even though I found it funny, but just leave. Just don't do that.
Oh yeah, and as far as
Go
the
ahead.
sporting goes, poor Carlos Sainz,
Yeah.
he got pretty chipped too out of this whole situation because obviously power unit components needed to be replaced with the damage that was done to the car, and Ferrari had already gone through their allotment of those components, and apparently there is nothing in the rules that pretty much gives you get out of jail free if something crazy happens, like, I don't know, you hit a manhole cover that shouldn't have been there. And so the FIA had no choice but to say, there's not any language in the rules for us to give you lenience here. You need the new components. You're past your allotment. We got to give you the penalty. So
Yeah.
not only did Carlos Sainz destroy his car hitting the manhole cover, but he received a 10-place grid penalty which ended up being really sad because, as we're going to get into here, he qualified very well. So I'm sure that put a damper on his whole weekend. And most people seem to agree that it seems undeserved. I understand that the rules say what they say, but I really hope that going forward now they think, oh, maybe we should have something in here where if you get screwed for something that's outside of your control, like the track condition, maybe we can give you the benefit of the doubt, give you a little lenience.
Reason number 809, as I will die on this, I will stump for this again. It's time to look at the rule book and look at everything that's in here, even the stuff that you don't think you need to look at. You probably should, because lo and behold, here's another example of a rule that on the surface seems fairly innocuous, that now we discovered a circumstance that nobody had accounted for, and now somebody gets massively screwed over because of it. Carlos Sainz, I feel for you here, man. That was absolutely, it's a BS decision. There's no if, and, or but about it. Everybody knew it. Fred Vasseur, sometimes people throw the word apoplectic around, but in the team principals press conference, Fred Vasseur was absolutely apoplectic, man. That was probably the most tension-filled team principals press conference that I've seen, certainly this year, since probably we were doing Cost Cap Gate in Austin in October last year. You could have cut the tension with a knife. The poor moderator who's trying to just, do discussion, had basically lost control of the situation. There were media members trying to get hot take questions, and Toto Wolff was about ready to go run after, I think, one of them. And Fred Vasseur was literally saying, can I just get the fuck out of here? Because I got to go deal with all this shit that's just happened because of this manhole cover. And, so, yeah, if you want to have a good time, cue up the team principals press conference from the Las Vegas Grand Prix. They've edited out all the cuss words, and there was quite a few of it. So, other than that, it was a half an hour of pure entertainment, if nothing else. But yeah, talk about not the way to get going on your first day. If the first impression is the only impression, yikes. And we'll get into some of the reaction to day one. There's a fan email I know about it. There's some things I want to say about it. But we'll get there. We will get there, I promise, with respect to all that. So then we finally got to day two. Now, here's the good news. When they actually ran FP2, it ran smooth. It ran to time. There was only one other red flag, and it was at the very, very end of the session, and that was actually caused by a regular old racing incident when Alex Albon clipped one of the walls, I think at turn 12-ish, and had to bring out a red flag. But that was only with 4 minutes to go, so the teams were able to kind of get back to normal footing and end what I would call one of the more strange days that I've ever had watching motorsport event. That led now into the Friday, Saturday, where we had uninterrupted, clean FP3. Hey, look at that. We finally got through one. And then the qualifying. So, as a result of that qualifying, we had, all right, going out in P20, the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. P19, this was a bit of a surprise. We'll talk about this. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P18 was Zhao Guan Yu. P17 was Esteban Ocon. And P16, the other McLaren of Lando Norris. So not a good start to the weekend for the MCL boys. P15 saw Daniel Ricciardo. P14 was Lance Stroll. P13 was Nico Hulkenberg. P12 was Sergio Perez. P11, not making Q3, Lewis Hamilton. So a lot of big heavy hitters, not where you'd expect them to be. The top 10 from 10 to 1. P10 was Fernando Alonso. P9, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. P8, Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. Hello, where has that been from? P7, Logan Sargent flying the flag for the USA. In the Williams, P6, Alex Albon and the other Williams. What the heck is going on here? P5, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. P4, George Russell in the Mercedes. P3, Max Verstappen only manages P3. P2, too bad for this engine penalty, man. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. And in P1 with a lap time of 132.726, Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari. All right, Cody, big thoughts when we finally got there from the qualifying session.
There's a bunch here. The first one that I notice here is that we've got two Williams in P6 and P7. We thought that the Williams might be successful at this track, considering they were pretty successful at Monza. And it's a similar type of track. There's a lot of long straights, a lot of high speed. The Williams has been very successful in those types of situations throughout the season. And they really brought it here. It's really good to see Logan Sargent, who I seem to remember was really successful in one of the practice sessions, had one of the fastest times in a practice session, turning that around into a really good qualifying position and making it to Q3. Alex Albon just as well. A lot of big mix up there. Also great to see any race this year now where Max Verstappen is not starting on pole because, I'm a fan, but need to see something else. Like it's getting boring.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. My big take on, okay, so you have to remember, one, we talked about the temperatures, and the temperatures being at the low end of the Pirelli range, if that is even a compliment to the Pirelli range. The other thing, you look at these results, and it's pretty clear to me kind of what I thought was actually happening was we had a lot of cars that, it was almost where, like, if you were last before in other places, you were first here, and first was last in other places. But a lot of what I saw here was a lot of these cars, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Haas to a certain extent, have a lot of what I would almost call stupid downforce. Stupid downforce that doesn't necessarily equate to lap time in most places. However, drop your temperature by 15 or 20 degrees from the normal working range, and look what you can do. You can fire up a tire with your stupid downforce. And bang! That's looked like what was happening here. So you end up with, teams Alfa Romeo in the top 10, both Haas's in the top, or one Haas in the top 10. The one with the upgrades that nobody liked are now suddenly in the top 10. And both Williams cars. Now, we knew Williams was going to be good because of the straight line thing. We thought they would be good anyway. But again, their ability to fire up these tires and get them working early proved to be a huge factor in setting of this in the first setting of this grid. You do end up with kind of some normal service near the front, but George Russell, a guy who'd struggled, is now qualifying very well here. Again, I feel really bad for Carlos Sainz. He probably would have, deserved to be on P2. We talked about that. And, here's Charles Leclerc again, just going about their business. Ferrari looked even when they got going in FP2 and FP3, and then they do the qualifying session, Ferrari looked like they were the goods, at least for sure over one lap throughout the course of the weekend.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how things might have been different if he hadn't had that penalty and Ferrari had the front row locked out.
Yeah, and that turned out to be a big thing that he wasn't there when we get into the race. But have to talk about now the people who were kind of caught out because of this. Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri. That's four big hitters really, really out of position. You look at the McLarens, and I would just say they did it to themselves again. They got way too cute with the tires again. And I think they got kind of fooled by what they saw in FP3, where a lot of guys or a lot of drivers were setting their quickest times on sometimes the fourth, fifth, maybe sixth lap. Well, this goes back to kind of what we talked about in the preview. They were going to have to shut down the circuit every night or every day and then open it up to the public, and then they would come back. So the circuit would go through this dramatic reset. So any sort of like Pirelli rubber or racing line that you thought you were going to have basically would disappear, and you'd have to start out all over again. Well, you finally get running in FP3, so there's a reset there. And then just the vast amount of track evolution that was going on. you definitely wanted to be out and not in the pits, which, at least for the McLarens, they were out, but they only opted to run one set of tires in the entire Q1 session because they somehow thought that the best time was going to be on the eighth or ninth lap, which made no sense to me. As soon as I heard that, and I'm like, and everybody's agreeing on the radio, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? This has got badness written all over it, and they were okay for when they set their lap times, but you just watch them. The times just tumbled. Everybody who came in and got new tires got the jump on everybody who didn't. It happened to Perez, who they just kept in the garage in Q2, and it happened to a certain extent to Hamilton because he was just couldn't get any more out of the car. So the evolution, and again, if you have what I would call that stupid downforce and can fire up a set of tires, you were doing really well, at least in qualifying. All right. So we will now flip over into the Saturday, Sunday portion of the race, and we will start with the back markers. And those back markers see, oh boy, my boy, short-lived bit of
already.
Yeah, cringing already. Lando Norris gets the DNF. He was not classified after a spin and wreck on lap 2. P19 was Nico Hulkenberg. P18, Yuki Tsunoda. P17 was Valtteri Bottas. P16, unfortunately unable to convert the great qualifying form into a race result, was Logan Sargent in the Williams. P15 was Zhao Guanyu. P14 was Daniel Ricciardo. And P13 was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Cody, big thoughts about the back markers. I'll come back to Lando once you're kind of finished.
I think we were seeing a lot of cars end up finishing the race kind of where we expected them to. As you said, it was pretty disappointing that Logan Sargent looked like he was on for potentially a really good weekend where he might score more points. But that car pretty much just faded out as the race went on and ended up finishing well outside the points. A lot of the other people back here, though, Kevin Magnussen, Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu, these are all of your typical backmarker teams. We do see flashes of brilliance from them sometimes, but it looked like they didn't really have it sorted out for this track. And then, you've got the odd one out of Lando Norris and the McLaren that looks so great, who ended up being pretty much our only crash-related attrition from the race.
Yeah, I mean, so you got to start with the lap one, what Martin Brundle lovingly referred to it as a kerfuffle, with Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, and then Fernando Alonso, who did a pirouette into the first turn. So again, it comes back to these roads are open to the public. So you had all of the grip you got in qualifying, that's gone. So you have the first lap. You're basically skating on, very, very thin ice is what it looked like. And cars were spinning, and they were very, very twitchy, definitely early on. And Lando gets around, both Lando and Oscar get around the initial spin, not wreck, of the first lap. But Lando finds himself, I think, only up to like P17 because of it. He quickly dispatches the next 5 cars by the end of the first lap. So you could tell that whatever qualifying gremlins were killing them in ultimate pace, they were making up for in race pace because they looked pretty good. So they all of a sudden he starts slicing through the field. He gets all the way up to I think P12 and Piastri's up to P11. So I'm like, okay, all right, well we're kind of back in this. Let's see what we could do. And the second lap happens and Piastri has a moment into the same turn as what catches Lando out, and you can see some sparks happening. And I don't know if Lando twitched because of that, but the back end just came around and watching throughout all the practices, the front end of that car just kept wanting to wash and not bite in. And that's what basically happened here. The back end washed out, the front end washed out with it, and now Lando's a passenger. Comes around, he wrecks, he's obviously out. The scary part was you get the transmission, are you okay? And you didn't get a response right away. And then on the second one, and then Lando keys his mic in, and you could tell, I think he got the wind knocked out of him, and that's probably why he couldn't respond right away. You hear all good, okay. and so that they obviously broadcast that to let everybody know to kind of calm everything down. He was taken to the medical center and then subsequently to the local hospital in Las Vegas, checked, cleared, and released. Looks like no major injuries. There was an erroneous report that some asshat decided to put out on Twitter that said that he had possibly broken his wrist. That was proven to be categorically and undeniably false. So, no issue there. It looks like he'll be fine for Abu Dhabi, at least as of this moment. But definitely a scary incident for sure. Yeah, he hadn't wrecked, I think, since Brazil in 2022. So, that stops a really long string of finishes for a guy who's had a really good second half of the year ever since the updates.
Yeah, it was a nasty, like, high-speed looking crash, too. With the way this track is and how fast these guys are going through the straights, there's a lot of potential for potential injury, and so it's very good to see that he's in fact okay. Going to be good to go to finish out the season.
Yeah, so we will leave kind of the back markers here, but just one last comment I guess I would have on the rest of them, where we saw it work in qualifying over that one lap pace with what I'm calling the stupid downforce. Well, they could not eke out tire life, so the Williams were competitive for good stretches of their stints, but again, as the tires would continue to churn, and all of these cars that ended up kind of back here, you just see kind of where they were kind of deficient, at least in race pace, and that's kind of why they ended up kind of back here where they ended up. Moving in now to the midfield. P12 saw Alex Albon. P11 saw Pierre Gasly. P10 saw Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. Bit of a recovery drive there. P9 was Fernando Alonso. P8 was George Russell. P7 back to front again. Lewis Hamilton. He had quite an adventurous day. P6 getting the most probably out of the recovery drive, considering all of the crap that had happened to him earlier this weekend. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P5. Hello, Lance Stroll. It's good to see you in the points yet again, sir. So good result for the Aston Martins here. And P4, the other guy. Welcome back to the sharp end of the grid here, Mr. Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. So, Cody, big thoughts in the midfield.
Definitely a lot of good recovery drives here. Like I said, I got Lewis Hamilton working his way up a little bit. Carlos Sainz working his way up even a little bit more. Some really unexpected guys showing up there in the upper part of the midfield. Great drive from Esteban Ocon and Lance Stroll. I think a lot of it maybe had to do with a little bit of luck, but also those Alpines actually looked pretty fast. Pierre Gasly was right up there as well. Ended up having, I think he said, an issue with his battery late in the race. So unfortunately, he finished just outside of the points. George Russell finishing just behind Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell having had a little bit of a clumsy moment during the race where he was being overtaken by Max Verstappen. Didn't see that he was there, didn't expect him to be there, and ended up turning in on him and causing significant damage. That ended up bringing out another safety car because there was a lot of debris out on the track. Now, my fiance actually watched this entire race with me, start to finish, which made me very happy. She asked a lot of questions.
Given the start time, that's even more impressive.
Yeah. She was asking a lot of questions throughout the race about the rules and why teams and drivers were doing certain things. And one of the things she was asking about here is why George Russell was getting the penalty instead of Max Verstappen. And there's, as we know, there's a lot of nuance with when you're going this fast to safe passing and the rules that go along with that. And yeah, George Russell gets the penalty there because even though he was the driver in front, Max Verstappen had pulled up enough on him to warrant room on the track. And George Russell, if he knew Verstappen was there, probably would have given it to him, but didn't seem to realize he was there. I believe he said as much and turned in on Verstappen, which ended up giving him a 5-second penalty that did make a difference at the end. He lost some position because of that.
Yeah, he actually finished, I think, P4 on the road, drops to P8 because of that safety car, which definitely bunched up the field. Kind of an interesting call. The incident happens, and there's, they put out the slippery flag for debris on track, and they let 2 laps of running go by before they finally called for the safety car. Um, basically for that debris. So, could it have maybe been a VSC type of thing? Maybe. I guess I don't really have a big problem with it. You wanted to get the debris. The debris was right when they make the turn onto the strip, which is probably one of the thinnest parts. So there's not a whole lot of operating window. I know because I was relegated to watching Oscar's onboard, which was functioning now, this race, which was some other things that weren't necessarily functioning, but Oscar Piastri's onboard was functioning, which is good. He went through that section and asked to, check the pressures, check the tires. Everything was okay. There were no obviously extra punctures in for him there. But that kind of screwed his strategy, as it turned out, because, after Lando goes out, he had started on the hard tire, had made all of, I think, his way up to P8 or P7 even. And then gets into a bit of a odd situation with Lewis Hamilton where they just touched, and for whatever reason, both cars ended up like, sometimes you watch these F1 cars, they bang into each other and they're fine, and this looked like almost next to nothing, and both of those tires ended up getting punctures because of it. So Oscar had to box right away. Lewis Hamilton had to do a whole lap going around, having to box again, so that all the progress that both of those guys had made was completely almost undone. And so it was an unscheduled pit stop there, meaning that Piastri was on hard tires, meaning he hadn't run the other compound yet. So he was committed now to a 2-stopper for sure. When that safety car comes out, they elected to keep him out to try to gain track position, and they couldn't get enough field spread after that. So he does have to come in late to pit, drops him, I think, to 12th. He recovers back up to 10th on the mediums, does manage to set fastest lap. So that was at least, a good couple hard-earned points for the Australian, who I thought actually showed some pretty good overtaking and making some moves there. So that was fun. We talked about what happened to Lewis. That puncture dropped Lewis all the way back, and then he had to recover all the way back up to P7. And the benefactor of all that, believe it or not, was Lance Stroll, because he was involved in the lap 1 incident, got on kind of an off strategy, and the safety car just put him right back into play.
Yeah, and all of that strong performance from Lance Stroll and Aston Martin compared to McLaren overall means that position in the Constructors' Championship is still very much in play going into Abu Dhabi.
It's not done. I think I did the math. They gained 10. They gained 10 points on them overall. Could have been a lot worse, because I know there were certain points at which I saw, I think Alonso was in the podium positions and Stroll was in the podium positions, and I was a tad nervous for a minute there. But I do think Abu Dhabi will suit McLaren a lot better than this track did. I think it'll hopefully they just clean sessions, no issues, bring them home, and they should be fine, assuming they don't do either something to themselves or have something unfortunate happen to them. But it's no longer a given that they're going to finish P4 in the constructors. They are going to have a fight going into the last round of the season because of the poor showing here. All right. Any other thoughts on the midfield before we move into the podium?
Not really for me, because for a change, all of the really, really good racing was happening right up at the front.
Yeah, so I guess we will get into that podium, and the podium, which was refreshing to watch, actual fighting for P1 back and forth between several different contenders. So P3 was Sergio Perez, who was passed on the last lap yet again. But because he finishes P3, he does secure P2 in the drivers, so that will hopefully take the pressure off of Checo. P2, kind of a bit of a hard luck case, I would have to say. I thought he deserved better, actually, on the night overall. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and in P1, it's just an inevitability, man. I don't know what else to say this season. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull goes 3-4-3 in the United States. Just some amazing stuff that he manages to pull off. But anyway, Cody, where do you want to start with the podium?
Well, if we're starting with the podium and Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, I can actually start from lap one, turn one, because we had something interesting happen there where Verstappen dives down the inside of Charles Leclerc and essentially forces him off the track. Perhaps not on purpose. There's a lot of low grip just starting off the race, and it seemed like Max just didn't have the car fully under control. But either way, he pushes Leclerc way wide and off the track. He gets the lead because of it, and he starts driving off. And there's a lot of time that passes between that incident occurring and any result coming from it. It was noted by the stewards. It's noted as being investigated by the stewards, but nothing came of it. They were talking about whether, Max Verstappen should give the place back, whether he should just get the penalty, and he's driving off, getting a little bit of ground. And so the team pretty much tells him, don't give it back. Just let's ride it out, see what happens. And eventually, Charles Leclerc does overtake him on track. I think right
Which
around
is
the
something
same
you
time.
don't see a whole lot of.
Yeah, I was amazed by that. I was like, oh man, we actually got a race on our hands. Right around that same time, they do decide to give Max a 5-second penalty. I think maybe even a little bit before that. And he has the greatest response. He's like, yeah, thanks. Send him my regards. Does not give a crap. He knows that, getting that position on track at the beginning there, even if it costs him a 5-second penalty, it's worth it to get out in front. He's going to do whatever he can within, or I guess a little outside of the rules. He's going to do whatever is the going to get him the best outcome for what the rules are as written. And in this case, best outcome was probably getting that track position, trying to see if he can pull out in front. If he gets the 5-second penalty, hopefully he's far enough out in front that it won't make a difference later on. And at the end of the day, it didn't make a difference. He did lose some track position, and he just made it back up by the end. But I did think that maybe the more fair judgment call on that would have been to tell him to actually give the position back to Leclerc, because at least then he would have to overtake him again. He would lose any gains that he made. He ended up losing them anyway from Leclerc overtaking him on track, but could have potentially happened that much quicker. So the call that was made didn't really sit well with me. I don't think it was a good enough punishment, but like I said, he's going to do whatever he can within the rules or within whatever penalties they're going to get him, and he's going to go for that best outcome scenario.
Yeah, it was kind of a I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I dare you to come and stop it type of situation. I guess that's really kind of what happened. But, the stewards could have thrown a bit more of the book at him if they had so chosen to. They obviously did not. There is some talk that the 5-second penalty that, it seems to be the default might not be enough in certain cases. And that may be, kind of example one of, this may be yet another example of, well, did the punishment actually fit the crime? And I don't know. And again, this goes back to my other argument about the rule book. Can the stewards, once an incident is referred to them, actually tell him to give the position back? I don't know that they can do that. I think they can only say this incident is a penalty, and then what is the appropriate remedy in their eyes? 5 seconds, 10-second penalty. They could do a stop go. They could do a 10-second stop go, or they could black flag him. Those, I think, are their only tools in the toolbox. So if you're going to say that that's worthy of 10 seconds, I don't think it was. But in the past, and I hate to even use this guy's name, but when you would hear Michael Massey, when we had that year in 21, and he was doing the air quote horse trading that everybody had such a problem with, that was to basically try to encourage to say, hey, let's give this back. Let's make the grid more apt to where it should be, and then you're fine to go. if Max just gave the position back for a lap and then did a Thanos lap that he was going to do, you're probably not even talking about it, anymore. And as it turned out, it didn't. I don't think it was a determining factor in the end result of the race. But it's a
No.
bad look when your driver's world champion just kind of says, "Well, yeah, thanks, stewards, appreciate it. Send them my regards, and I'm gone." And it doesn't discourage the behavior because what is going to stop Max from doing that exact same move again later on? And I don't buy the lack of grip argument that I'm sure he would have had. He forced Leclerc off, and I'm sure in a private area where nobody's looking, that's exactly what he would say. And it's one of the reasons that Max kind of is who he is, good, bad, or indifferent. Like, did I like that move? No. But he's going to do what he's going to do, and you really couldn't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, didn't really play too much of a part later on. Through some safety car sequences, we ended up getting a pretty interesting setup where Sergio Perez made his way up the grid, and ended up being right behind Charles Leclerc on some fresh hards. Ended up making the overtake on Leclerc, who then, throughout like the last bunch of laps of the race, it was fantastic to watch. You had Leclerc overtake again for the lead, I believe. You had Max Verstappen overtake Perez, who I think Perez at that point pretty much let him by. Max ends up getting a pretty easy pass on Leclerc. In the closing stages, you get Sergio Perez make the pass on Leclerc, and you think we're going to have this really awesome Red Bull 1-2 finish that sees Perez clinch P2 in the championship, which he ended up doing anyway. But then, man, you see Leclerc closing in on Perez again within those last couple laps. Max Verstappen is pretty much holding back to try to give Checo a slipstream effect to try to help him defend against Leclerc, but it didn't matter. Leclerc was brave and bold and made a really awesome pass right at the end. Managed to get that P2. Just some really awesome racecraft from all three of those guys, and it was very exciting to watch, and even better with it being right at the front.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what you would call a proper ding-dong between all three of them right there, because it was great stuff. And the fight back from Leclerc was, one, amazing to watch, and two, just something one of those things you rarely sometimes see. Usually once a Red Bull gets by you, that's the end of that game, and it's been fun to be up here, and bye-bye, we're gone. But not the case here, whether... I've read some stuff that Perez had a slightly more draggier setup than Max did in order to try to help out with his firing up of the tires based on his driving style. So he could get up there. He obviously was able to get the lead, but he couldn't go driving away because of it. So just great stuff there at the end. It kept everybody very much enthralled, I think, all the way till the end, because you really didn't know what was going to happen. And here we go again. We've only got a couple seconds of delta between P1 and P2 here. So, yes, did Max try to hold back a little bit, and could he have gone way down the road a little bit? Maybe not. We don't really necessarily know, but it's getting there. You're seeing more and more events where it's not. We're kind of done with the 25 seconds down the road. Now watch Abu Dhabi, he'll be like 40 seconds down the road and make my point completely moot. But I think overall the grid is catching them slowly. It's not enough to overtake them. And they still got that little bit in reserve if they need it. But this was a damn good show overall. I was enthralled throughout the whole hour and 40 minutes that it lasted, with all the on-track stuff. Forget about all the stuff that happened afterwards with the podium, and we can talk about the awkwardness of driver intros and everything else. But for a race session itself, F1 did it right. I mean, this was really good. This was fun. I enjoyed it. It was worth staying up for. And it does prove a bit of a redemption factor for the stumbling out of the blocks that the first practice was, to end up here it works. This track works. There's overtaking opportunities with this formula of cars. I'm excited to see what the future prospects hold here.
Yeah, it was very exciting. I've seen a lot of comparison to Azerbaijan when it first came to be on the calendar, where people looked at the track layout and said, that's going to produce an awful Grand Prix. And I think a lot of people thought this is too. And all of the pomp and circumstance that surrounded the race weekend just kind of egged people in that direction of thinking, man, this is just going to be a really crappy race weekend. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by just how good the racing was.
Yeah, and it looked like there was some really good natural places for overtaking. Specifically, the turn onto the strip is going to be one where I think for years people will learn, how to attack that corner. It's kind of a multiple apex corner if you actually can try to figure out where to do that. You can kind of take a high line, you can take a low line. So there's a whole lot of, I think, real opportunity once, now that we have a set of data, now that we know what kind of is going to happen with the tires. Do they maybe need to tweak where it is on the calendar? That's a possibility. Maybe make it a tad warmer. That might help a little bit. It might help it a lot. Maybe make some, tweaks to the schedule so the rest of the United States on the East Coast can actually watch it. Shout out to Deanna and her dad, who I knew were up at 1 a.m. Eastern when this thing kicked off. But it overall, this can work. This is a product. You can sell it. The organizers have some work to do. There's no doubt about it in my mind. There's a lot of lessons, a lot of learnings that were happening, but I left the Grand Prix as a fan. Take everything out of it. I was satisfied. I enjoyed this race. This was fun. All right, so I guess we will leave that as the last word on the actual race results. We are going to take a quick break. We will re-rack. We will recap what this all does to the driver and the constructor standings. We'll kind of tell you what battles to look forward to in the last race of the season. Then we'll open it up to our favorite segment, the fan email segment. We've got some really good stuff here. We'll talk about some awards. I have lots of for one award, and I've got a few things for some other stuff. So that'll be always something interesting to come on and back for. We'll talk about predictions. Our darts at a dartboard thing. Yikes, this was kind of cringy, but we'll get into all that in just a little bit. So come on back, and we'll get into it. Welcome back in. This is season 5. This is episode number 40 of the Outlap F1 podcast. I'm sorry to say that is not quite how old I am anymore. Yikes. This is our 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix race review. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up talking about what was actually, when you just boil all the stuff down and just look at the on-track stuff, a very entertaining first Las Vegas GP race. So now we're going to take a look at where the standings shake out after this round of the F1 season. So Cody, if you do the drivers, I will take the teams.
All right. As of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, with only one race left to go on the calendar, we have Max Verstappen secured the championship quite a while ago at this point, with a whopping 549 points. His teammate, Sergio Perez, however, has now secured second place in the driver standings, also with Red Bull, with 273 points. Lewis Hamilton has position 3 sealed in. He's driving with Mercedes, obviously, with 232 points. And then after that, there's still a lot to play for. So we have Carlos Sainz in 4th place and Fernando Alonso in 5th place, both at 200 points. Carlos Sainz gets the tiebreaker because he's the only non-Red Bull driver this year to have won a race. In 6th place, Lando Norris, just behind them, driving for McLaren with 195 points. So still a possibility for him to overtake both those guys if he has a really good race next weekend. Charles Leclerc is in 7th place, which seems awfully low for his performance in this last race. But he's just behind them with 188 points. 8th place, George Russell in the other Mercedes with 160 points. Then we got a little bit of a gap back to ninth place, Oscar Piastri in the old McLaren with 89 points, and Lance Stroll reinforcing his 10th place a little bit this weekend. And he's driving for Aston Martin, and he's holding on with 73 points.
Yep. Looks like the P10, that may just do it for Lance Stroll. I think he's opened up like almost a 9-point lead on 11th place, and I think that's Pierre Gasly. So that may finally have come to a bit of a conclusion there. The fourth through seventh battle is actually very spicy. You could see a whole lot of change depending on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix results. The fact that Sainz and his idol Fernando Alonso are tied on points is kind of really cool. Lando dropping a little bit, obviously, with the wreck here, unable to score any points on the weekend, but still just an amazing run of form for him in the second half. So he could still potentially secure P4 in the drivers, which would be an amazing turnaround from where the season started for sure. But looking now at the teams, Red Bull Racing Powertrains, like I keep saying, they're in their own dimension, really. They're in their own realm of reality. I don't really know how else to say it. 822 points. Second place, Mercedes, not even half the points. They check in with 392. Third place is Ferrari on 388. So the P2 battle in the constructors, that's a big deal. So Mercedes and Ferrari are going to go at it in Abu Dhabi for sure. And fourth and fifth, McLaren with 284 and Aston Martin with 273. They're going to go at it in Abu Dhabi for sure as well. Sixth place, Alpine. They check in with 120. They seem pretty locked in. That's where they're going to finish, regardless of the last race of the season. But 7 through 10 could see some major shifting as well. Seventh place is Williams. They check in with 28. Eighth place is AlphaTauri Honda. The darlings of the back of the field lately, they're up to 21 points, but no points scored for them this weekend. Ninth place, Alfa Romeo Sauber. They check in with 16 points. And 10th place, Haas Ferrari. We did not get a chance to talk. Did we talk about the appeal that Haas did with the USGP and that it was completely rejected? I don't know if we actually talked about it on recording. I know we tweeted about it, but the stewards did not find new evidence to support a right of review there. And so that was pretty much done and dusted. So they remain on 12 points. All right. So enough of our takes. We've given you kind of our opinion of the weekend, the good, the bad, and some of the ugly. Now we're going to open it up to your takes on what you saw all weekend, the fan email segment. Dee is not here. She's, like I said, she's spending some time with her family, and happy Thanksgiving to her and her family as well. So, Cody, it's your time to shine tonight. So you get to take it away. And Rachel Fleming has reclaimed her P1 status.
All right. Our first fan email comes from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, well, that was better than expected. Firstly, what on earth happened to Williams? They dropped like a stone. Hopefully, quali was at least a step in the right direction. She personally felt the 5-second penalty for George was harsh, but has been a weekend for very unfair decisions on and off the track. Good race from Sergio, which should just about confirm P2 in the championship. And lastly, she hopes Lando is okay and fit to race in Abu Dhabi. Pretty much agree with just about everything you said, Rachel. It was a little disappointing to see the Williams cars drop like a stone. I was really hoping to see some more points for Logan Sargent in the States. In fact, it almost could have turned into a running joke of him only ever getting points in the States. But alas, can't make that joke just yet. I actually think that the 5-second penalty for George was pretty warranted. He did cause some pretty significant damage. Well, it was kind of hard to tell exactly which car received the damage. It didn't seem like too much was done to Max because his performance wasn't affected that much. But he was up alongside George. And so I think that he definitely warranted some kind of punishment. Definitely great for Sergio to be back on the podium. And I hope that, well, it seems like from what he said that Lando is okay and fit to race in Abu Dhabi. Don't believe what anyone else said, making up stuff like Andy was saying just to get some likes on Twitter. But yeah, I look forward to seeing him in Abu Dhabi as well.
And that person was properly roasted. I just scrolled through some of the comments, and um, we don't always do great things as an F1 community, but you can't lie to us, and we know how to spot liars. So let's put it that way. Yeah, it looked like the last shot that I saw of him was him actually coming back into the paddock. He didn't do any of the debrief videos for kind of obvious reasons, but all indications are that he should be fine. I'm not expecting, unless there's some sort of lasting impact or post incident syndrome or something that crops up. Looked like he got the wind knocked out of him. He had full movement of all of his faculties. He was walking just fine, from everything that I've looked at, read, and seen. So looks like he's going to be all systems go. We probably won't find out until we actually see him in the paddock on Wednesday. But obviously that's a heck of a shunt. I hope that he can just put it behind him. When he crashes, they tend to be pretty big ones. I'm thinking back to the one in Spa when he was going for pole, and he spun out there and hit the wall really, really hard and destroyed that car. And the car can be replaced. He can't. So that's obviously first and foremost of where my mind went right away. With respect to Williams, I mean, we kind of talked about it. I think that is a car that in a straight line is an amazing thing. And it has what I like to call also some stupid downforce on it. And that's why they were able to fire those tires up really well for the qualifying session in the cold. And in the early part of the race, they were holding their own on pace, but it also churns through that rubber that much faster. And I think that that's pretty much what you saw from all of, and we kind of talked about this in the preview where we said we were going to have some contenders and some pretenders and some pretenders that look like contenders. And that's what ended up happening. Pretty much, you look at the back markers, a lot of them were in Q3. A lot of them had some really good starting positions, just unable to kind of close the show there from them. With respect to the 5-second penalty for Russell, to me, it was really more of a racing incident. I think they almost would have self-penalized with the damage that they would have done. I don't know that I needed an extra penalty on top of that. It kind of was more salt in the wound, but I don't think Max was at fault. So I can't see that going the other way because Max had clearly established a position there. So it's either a 5-second penalty or it's a racing incident as far as I'm concerned. So I didn't have a huge problem with it when I saw it. With respect to Sergio Perez, good for him. Hopefully now the crazy talk will die down. He can enjoy his holiday and get ready for what's going to be a big year for him next year. He's got to try to stay with Max beyond the first 5 rounds. Because if he's got another year like that, there are the vultures are there. Liam Lawson is there and will be constantly looking at Sergio Perez. And Daniel Ricciardo will be there and constantly looking at Sergio Perez. Again, it's kind of like everybody watching everybody else at Red Bull, just like the De Niro movie where, the pit boss is watching this guy and the dealers are watching the players and all the other stuff. So you can find that sequence. It's really good. It made me think of everybody who's watching everybody at Red Bull right now.
Excellent. Our next fan email comes from the Formula, and they say, a lot of talking points, but I'll keep them brief. What could have been if Ferrari had 2 cars at the front? The drain cover had lasting damage into Sunday. I like Max, but the turn 1 shenanigans really irked me. It's more a product of the rules only resulting in a 5-second penalty that he can usually just shrug off on pure pace. Finally, I quickly grew very irritated and sick of all the slander against this event from fans and drivers alike. He grew sick of the slander against this event from fans and drivers alike, such as Max. It really pissed me off. F1 is an entertainment sport. Let yourself be entertained. Get the pretentious sticks out of your collective asses and allow yourself to have some fun and feel the vibes for once. Again, I like Max, but of all the unprovoked bitching, really turned me off. The same goes for the fans, mostly from across the pond. Why are you so resistant to any type of hype or spectacle? Lighten up. Personally, I loved the circuit and the event as a whole. and can't wait for more years of it to come. I pretty much, so I am not as big on the pomp and circumstance thing. I do understand that it's Las Vegas, and that's what they do. Las Vegas, entertainment is the name of the game, and they do it really well. And so I can see why they would want to apply that to F1, especially for their first race here. And, I guess in hindsight, maybe I'll look back on it and I'll think it was fun. So I guess maybe I need to lighten up a little bit too. But yeah, I definitely think that some people went a little over the top with their resistance to just letting the Las Vegas race be what it was probably always going to be, which was a big show. And some of the stuff was cool. The fountains at the Bellagio, after the driver interviews, I thought that was pretty cool. They had really good fireworks display. Even
they lit up the entire city, man. That was nuts. Saudi Arabia, eat your heart out, man.
Even the cool down car, was kind of funny getting to see everyone kind of squeezed in the back there and trying to figure out where they were going, like my fiance described it as a bunch of people in an Uber trying to figure out where they're going. But yeah, it had its high points and its low points. And yeah, Max was definitely very open throughout the entire week and weekend about how he thought that this was only 1% for the racing and everything else was for the show, and that he didn't really like being paraded around like a clown and all that stuff. But I mean, that's part of the name of the game. You are a Formula One driver, but as the formula said, it is an entertainment sport, so you're expected to entertain. Anything to say on that one?
Oh no, I mean, I first off, thank you, the formula, for encapsulating a lot of my thoughts throughout the course of the weekend. I will respond to some of it here. I have some awards for some other of it too. I'm going to try not to get ridiculously red-faced, but I've been at this watching of Formula One for a very long time. I've watched the sport go from nowheresville in this country to, and I will distinctly remember this when we came back from, I think, qualifying in Austin, and we were walking through the lobby of the hotel, and I remember overhearing just a conversation, and it was probably, I don't know if the fans were super hardcore, I have no idea who they were, but they were talking about tires and tire life and degradation and all that kind of other nerdy stuff, and I'm like, hot damn. Even when I first went to Texas, even when they first did this race, you weren't getting that type of discourse that was going on in hotel rooms. It was just, oh, this is kind of a fun thing, and look at the cars, and aren't the drivers hot, and all this other stuff. The fans in this country, you can no longer underestimate them. They are learning this sport. They are understanding the sport. They have caught on. I can tell you that every people around even just Chicago know about Formula One now. They knew when this race was coming. I would get stopped. They'd see my hat on. I got people coming up to me in the grocery store having conversations about F1. It's an amazing thing. We've caught on to this sport. And whether or not, and part of that means that you get us for good, for bad, or for indifferent. And what we do is sometimes we go over the top. And that's just who and what we are. That is what Las Vegas is. And I'm sorry if the opening ceremony, which was only a half an hour out of your time, really, really bothered you when you only saw the drivers for a whole 5 minutes. And yeah, it had Hunger Games vibes. And yeah, it reminded very much Hunger Game vibes, especially when they're getting introduced like that. And they're coming up from underneath the platform. But you know what they did? They had to go down, and you know what they did? The regular media session 5 minutes later, which they already would have been there. So as long as you do it, you don't drastically alter the rhythm of what they have to do. Now, look, we understand these guys are the warriors. They got to go out. They have to do a very dangerous thing. The Lando Norris wreck should prove to everybody that this is still a very fucking dangerous thing that they have to go out and do. And they have to be in the right mindset to do it. So I understand Max's critique. But what we have to do as race promoters, as fans of the sport, is strike a balance between the pomp and circumstance, which can be really cool. Hey, let's have the buffer brother who does the UFC and who does stuff like this. Oh, damn it, it's not going to play. I had it. Stupid soundboard. That was a moment that was going to happen. But let's have that. It'll probably play in the middle of me talking. But let's have that and have a great race at the same time with the guys in the proper mindset.
Man,
we'll do more when we get to awards.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on that. That people were a little too butthurt over the show,
and way too excited about the stumbling of the block in FP1, and specifically that I want to talk about.
Yeah. As far as the other points from the formula go, I think could have really had something maybe magical happen if we did have two Ferraris on the front row. They did seem very strong on the mediums in the beginning. So, but we could, talk about what could have been for a lot of races. So I won't get too deep into that. And I already kind of talked about the Max shenanigans in turn one that, he did receive the penalty for it. Did the penalty really do much? No. Does it warrant maybe taking a look at the rules to open up more, methods of, for instance, opening it up to the stewards to make the driver give the position back rather than a time penalty. Giving them more room to give punishments for penalties. And I personally think that they should have more in their toolbox to do that. But yeah, I at least I got a good laugh.
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
It's a little late, but it's there. There you go. That's for you, Mr.
It is epic. It would have been perfect if it's late.
Oh, I know. I had it in my head. That was like it was coming together, and I saw it there, and I was going to hit it. And oh well, this is why this show is what this show is. It's it's magically flawed and magically delicious at the same time. I hope. Anyway,
max penalties. That's pretty much the gist of it.
I mean, we talked about the penalty. I mean, if they wanted to give more, they could have. That's totally fine. Max is going to do Max things until somebody makes it not be that way. And the best way to have it not be that way is for the rest of the teams to step up, build a car that can compete with him at his level and knock him a peg or two down. That's the best bet to get revenge there.
Agreed. Our next fan email comes from Dave Doherty. Thanks, Dave. And he says, Viva Las Vegas. Would you love to see this track on the F1 calendar in the next 9 years? Nice and to the point. If you had asked me at the beginning of the week, I probably would have said, I don't know, or maybe even no. After seeing this race, I actually think it would be pretty fun to have it around still in 9 years. It produced a lot better racing than I was expecting. It was pretty cool to see the cars going through the strip. You can't deny that. It looks really cool as a night race. And I think they even said that they're not going to do quite as much of the show in the years going forward, but even a little bit of it, can be fun. So I would like to see this track, I think, on the calendar in 9 years. How about
you? As long as they can continue, and there's a lot of learning that has to be done, particularly by Formula One, by Liberty, in it keeps coming back to being a good neighbor in a new community. And that is what you are when you've bought and invested in that property. And that property is amazing. I mean, the fact that was a empty lot, on prime real estate, and they took it over and built that amazing facility. It's going to have a lot of uses. It's going to be a really good thing, hopefully, for the community. And they have an awesome asset. But in terms of the actual race weekend themselves, they have a lot of learning to do. One, they got to figure out their scheduling so that you don't have, in case something doesn't go to plan, you're not kicking fans out. You can't operate that way. Two, you got to become less obsessive about finding and trying to stop any sort of freeloading of people watching your product. Between the fences and the overpasses that had the film and stuff on it, and the fences that had this black stuff over it, and then they discovered the video of the guys going up and down the escalator, so they put this big red box, literally red curtain around the escalators going over the overpasses the next 2 days. It's just, don't be like that. There's plenty of money to be made here. And then the ticket prices have got to come down and be actually more affordable to you, to me, to anybody who wants to go. They are professionals at separating you from your hard-earned money. They're going to do it probably one way or another. So let's not do it right at the beginning, and let's not make it a complete and total money grab. And let's open it up to some rank and file fans who would probably love to go, because this is a product. I'll sell this product. In 9 years' time, I hope we're looking at 3 or 4 really banger races. Maybe next year, if it stays where it is in the calendar, this could be a race that determines the championship. And what a wild card to throw into between Austin, Brazil, and Vegas being the end of your calendar. That's 3 opportunities to see some really interesting stuff happen. And even, hey, maybe Mexico will get their act together too, and we'll have some great racing there too. I don't want to, just keep them out of that. But, that's been a harder track to see some really fun stuff at. But, yeah, let's see where we are in a few years.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, like you said, if something doesn't change in 9 years, whether it's on the calendar or not, I'm still not going to be able to afford it. Our last fan email comes from Nando SZN. Is that Nando Season? Not really sure. And they say
that is one of our contributors. That is Quentin Warden.
Oh, okay. Well, hi, Quentin Warden. You'll have to let us know if it's Nando Season or just Nando SZN. But either way, he says the race more than justified the spot on the calendar. Trying to not just be salty Charles couldn't get the W and Ferrari couldn't capitalize more on their speed. But hey, they still cut the gap to second massively and have it all to play for in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, we pretty much just talked about it. I think Andy and I are both in agreement that the race did justify Las Vegas' spot on the calendar, at least for now. And that, hopefully if they can work through some of the growing pains of being a new venue, that it will be even more justified going forward. And yeah, I think you can't really fault Ferrari or Charles for anything that happened this weekend. Sainz got screwed by the track, but he made up for it during the race and got some good points. And Charles put on some of the best racing that we've seen all season, with his fighting against the Red Bulls up front, had pole position. I was hoping for the first half of the race that just maybe he could squeeze out the win. Was not meant to be. I think that just goes to show how dominant Max and that Red Bull car really are this season. But it gives me good hope for next season to see, maybe next year, maybe I really hope that Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes can close the gap on Red Bull and actually make it interesting, because, I love that Max won pretty much everything this year and broke all these records. And, it was really cool to get to see one of the most dominant Formula One seasons ever. But just once is fine. Don't need another one of these next year. The man's won, 33 races now between this season and last season. That's more races than Fernando Alonso has in his entire career. So please share the top spot on the podium with someone else. And I hope the other teams can put together good enough cars to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I still want to sell the prospect of 5 teams potentially being race-winning cars next year, because if they can all get it right. One of the things, as you were talking, Cody, I was just thinking about, Ferrari have actually quietly gotten quicker in the second half of the season. They have really kind of stepped up. They've still kind of shot themselves in the foot a few times now. Obviously, none of that applies here. You cannot predict the manhole cover coming up and completely botching your weekend, and nor should you have that in your thing that you're trying to plan around. But
Magic 8 Ball.
they've done really good. And Leclerc, to his credit, you really feel like what the hell could have happened in Brazil if the car just didn't die on him. There, because he looked pretty good there. He looks very good in Mexico. Obviously, he was on the pole at Coda. So we've got these ways of trying to see can they finally put it together? If they can, they're a contender. That. McLaren is going to be pretty good. They've got some really good positive stuff vibing in that camp. Mercedes have got to figure this car out. They've got to figure this formula out. They may be the last ones to the party, but again, look at Aston Martin. Look at what they've done. They've taken the upgrades off. So I mean, it's good that they went back to their base stuff and now they're scoring again. But what can they do? Can they reevaluate and try to figure out the right direction for 24? And you look even at some of these other guys. I think AlphaTauri, I don't think they're going to be race winning contender next year. But if they're starting with an RB19 base as your base package, they're going to be up there and being meddling and annoying, just like kind of Williams is now to a lot of teams. So there's a lot of good that I could see happening in the 24 season. I don't know that we're quite going to get there. I'm hoping that we do. Obviously, I've got my fingers crossed. These are because you're seeing the gaps come down, especially in the second half. You've kind of seen the teams that have continued to develop. They're catching slowly now. Does Adrian Newey have another great car in his arsenal that he just debuts and is way clear of the field? Maybe. That's a possibility. I'm not going to say that that's not, but the hope is certainly that we could have a really cool season next year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So thank you to all of the contributors. It's great to get perspective from what you guys saw over the course of the weekend. And we're happy to react to it as always. It's always one of my favorite segments, one of the more fun things that we do on the show, for sure. All right, so we will now move into our awards. I have a lot of rubbish. I know Cody probably has a lot of rubbish. Cody, I'll let you go first, and I will try not to get too emotional when I get to my rubbish, because this is maybe the part where I get a little red-faced. But I'll let you go
good.
first.
I love a good Andy rant. My rubbish award is going to go to the Carlos Sainz penalty, because it feels wrong to give a driver and a team a penalty for something that was, so far outside of their control. Like they can't control the obstacles that are on the track that really shouldn't be there. They can't control the fact that, he hit it, didn't see it, he hit it, and it tore apart his car. That's not within the team's control. You think of the penalties for components being related to, reliability, where, the team couldn't put together, a reliable enough engine or other components to last as long as, they should within the bounds of the rules. And so if you need more components, then you get a penalty. I think that's really what those penalties are intended for. And it feels like there's, something missing in the rules, that when there's some kind of weird act of God like this, that there's no way to, say, okay, well, this was outside of your control. Fine. Take new engine, new parts. I think maybe some people might be worried that, okay, they get, new components. So, okay, well, they're fresh. Maybe they're performing a little better, but it's, it feels better than giving him a 10-place grid penalty for something that he had no control over.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, and just to react to yours before I get into mine, the intent of the rule was never to account for anything like this. The intent of the rule was to kind of force the teams to have to police themselves with respect to cost. Because, we've come from an era of qualifying engines that would do 50 miles, and then they'd build them up, they'd run them, they'd either break or they wouldn't break, and they'd retire and they'd sit on a shelf. And that's a lot of work and time and labor. It was trying to stretch out the reliability. Well, this has nothing to do with reliability. There's nothing about, if a tree had fallen on the track and it damaged a car, and prevented it from competing when you had a spare everything ready to go.
Oops, it's a penalty.
Yeah, oops. You have there's no issue there. But anyway, I guess I'll just start here with mine. The signs penalty is, again, reason number 809 that we need a deconstruction of the sporting regulations. We need to look at every page of this rule book, and we need to start saying, did things make sense? And if we have to build in clauses that say, if we discover a new unencumbered circumstance that we hadn't seen before, maybe we should actually build in a force majeure clause that says the stewards have the authority to set it right. And, without necessarily even a vote of the teams, because if you give the teams a vote, then they'll screw themselves over like they always tend to do, because it's the Piranha Club for a reason. So you have to give the independent body a bit of actual firepower to do the job that you're asking them to do. And I felt bad. Like, you actually read the statement and it just sounds, well, we really would have wanted to. We poured through the rule book for 3.5 hours and we couldn't find anything. So yeah, let's tear it apart. Let's build it up right. Let's make it right. We're smart people. We should be able to do this. That's rant 1. Rant 2, race organization. I did see some reports of them running out of water and running out of food, like we talked about in our preview episode, that these are the things that happen with a first-year organization. It's worse that it's F1 itself as the organizer itself. Your non-apology falls on very deaf ears when it's 3:30 in the morning. And you really and you've been told, well, if you just stick it out, and you paid all this money, you should be able to get a product. And I get it, it's only practice. And the rest of the weekend went fine, and they corrected it, and they fixed it, and there's learning that's happened, and I don't think you're going to have it happen again. But man, does that feel like dirty pool. That feels like just dirty pool to kick people out who had done everything that had been asked of them, and they paid their good, hard-earned freaking money. And a lot of hard-earned freaking money to get in there. So yeah, can we get our act together better? Can like next year? I really hope the market gets set to where it's actually reasonable. And I get you want to be over the top in what you were offering in food and amenities and all that, but you better damn well deliver, because these prices are absolutely insane. When you price me out of it, it's saying something. Let's put it that way, because I was trying as of a week ago, to try to figure out if I could maybe get on a jet and go do this, but amazing. And then finally, to kind of pirouette as with the formula, what he said, I was, and I've been around for a very long time in this. I've watched a lot of stuff. I've convinced a lot of people that this is a good and fun sport. But the reaction that I saw from so many across social media, when it looked like, first of all, the calls to cancel the race when you've got 2.5 days to solve a problem were insane. That's the first thing I saw. Oh, well, that's it. We're done. The manholes are broken. We have to cancel everything. We should all go home. What universe are you living in? Like, why would that ever happen? Why would that be in anybody's thought process? But let's forget about that for a minute. But the absolute vitriol that I saw from so many that were literally just kind of on the sidelines rooting for this thing to fail. Why? Where do you get that from? Why? Like, do you not I get it. Obviously, you don't like to be entertained. But you know what? Here's the thing. If you don't like any of that stuff, you have the best power in the world. You have a remote control that has a channel changer. You don't have to watch any of it. If Martin's Grid Walk makes you cringe that badly, you know what you can do? You can change the channel to a Gordon Ramsay cooking show for 10 minutes and come back when it's over and done with. Like, come on. And it put me into a spot that I hadn't felt, where I'm like, my God, I wanted nothing more to do with anybody Friday morning. I really didn't. I posted the practice result. I said, that's it. I'm out and I'm done. And I literally wanted to throw my phone through a window. It was just awful when every other thing was, oh my God, this is so great. This thing's going to be a total fucking disaster. Like, do you remember where this sport was 7, 8 years ago when your paddock was half filled? You had 14, 15 cars. You had teams going into bankruptcy or into administration, left, right, and center. That was actual collapse. I mean, the Braun GP documentary is out there. 2008 was on the verge of collapse. 2014, 2015, teams were on the verge of collapse. And I get Liberty Media is not perfect. They did not do a perfect show here. But where they have taken this sport from where it was to where it is now, you better be damn well thankful that these guys at least understand business and understand marketing. Because if you had the old regime, this thing would have probably ridden itself into the ground, and we'd be, all watching something else. Unbelievable. All right, I'm done.
Good rants.
Wasn't as red-faced as I thought I was going to get, but I definitely have the juices flowing. Anyway, all right, so we will move on. Analysis paralysis. I've been talking for a while, so Cody, you got to bail me out here. What you got?
All right, my analysis paralysis goes to Red Bull for qualifying, because I could not understand with how the track was evolving why they kept Checo in the garage and not going out to set another lap time, because he didn't get to Q3 because of it. I figured that maybe it had something to do with maybe the car got damaged. Never heard anything about it. It just seemed like they were confident with the lap time that he had already put out and that he was going to still be in the top 10 at the end of Q2, and that was not the case. A whole bunch of cars went through with faster times because the track was evolving, and suddenly he's sitting there left hung out to dry. So it seemed like a bit of a missed call on Red Bull's part. And yeah, you don't see a whole lot of those from Red Bull this year. So you got to call them out when they happen.
Yep. Yeah. So mine is also on qualifying. Still don't understand that Q1 tire call there for the McLaren team. The fact that both drivers were all totally cool with it, they didn't even question it, made it even all the more odd. And I understand it from what they saw in the free practice before then, when there were some fast times being run on some older sets of tires, but you weren't also accounting for the track evolution that was clearly going on in front of you, and being on new tires in the midst of that track evolution was the way to get the lap time. And you ended up having to start way in the back because of it. We'll never know where they would have actually finished, kind of in, had they qualified where they could have. Even if they qualified 10th or 11th or 8th or 9th or something, they're probably not in that. They're certainly not in the opening melee, or maybe they're in the opening melee. So you never know. I mean, it could have worked one way or another for them. It ended up being what it was ended up being. But the thing that just stop being cute about the tires. Like, if you don't think you're going to get pole position, it's okay to run just the one set in Q3. I'd rather you get to Q3 and get as much as you can out of it than save a set of tires that you never ended up using, as it turned out, because neither of them used any of the softs that they had. So what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we will move on to our dark horse of the day. Interesting category here for this race.
Yeah.
I like this one.
Cody,
what you got? Yep.
I went with Lance Stroll because I saw the opportunity. Don't think it comes up a whole lot, and I had to take it. We spend a lot of time, I think the F1 fandom at large spends a lot of time making fun of Lance Stroll. It's kind of easy to do so, especially since he, seems to be keeping that seat, mostly because Dad owns the team. A little less of the team, as we've found out lately. But every once in a while, he seems to have a really good performance, and maybe some of it was up to luck and all the craziness that happened on lap one. But he went from P14 to P5 by the end, and I would not saw that coming from him. And he got really good points, and those points right now are important for Aston Martin, because you said that it is probably going to be in McLaren's court by now, but at least he helped to keep them mathematically in the game, and I got to hand it to him. It was a good performance. P5 is nothing to cough at, so good on him.
Yeah, you almost wonder if his like speciality are these slippery, weird, cold conditions. Because I mean, you go back to Turkey in the COVID year, with Force India at the time, he's taking the pole, over there in the same types of conditions. So the slippier and the more non-traditional the racetrack, apparently the better it is if you're Lance Stroll. So maybe that's what we found. Maybe he had to go rally driving. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. But my dark horse will go out to one Esteban Ocon, and a great result for Alpine. Felt bad for Gasly. I actually really did. I thought they were both on for some really good results for a team that's been through a lot internally, to start to see some good results come their way. I would have totally been in, for double points for that team. But I was very happy for Esteban. Just again, nice to see great effort, good result for the Alpine team when they thought that they weren't going to be anywhere. So that's even better. Okay, so now we will move on to our driver of the day, aka sometimes the Max Verstappen Award. But we've got some different submissions this time. I have one on track and one off track, just because I wanted to get this reference in here. But Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
I thought this one was really easy this time around. Driver of the day is definitely going to be Charles Leclerc. He didn't win the race, but man, he put on some of the best racing we've seen in a while. He gave it his all. He fought tooth and nail right up to the end of the race and ended up paying off for him. So he secured a very, very fun to watch P2. Was not that far behind Verstappen, and I think even if Verstappen hadn't slowed down to help Checo, he still wouldn't have been that far behind. And it's definitely things are looking up for Ferrari lately. I'm hoping that Charles Leclerc's run of bad luck is at an end. Fingers crossed, knocking on wood, and that we'll see him back in the fight next year.
All right. So for my driver of the day, I actually have two. I have an on-track one and an off-track one. My on-track one is I'm in agreement with you totally. I do think Charles Leclerc is deserving of it. I thought a great fight back. I thought he totally proved that that dude's got a racer's heart. I don't really care what anybody wants to say about him. Probably deserved a little bit better of a fate here, given especially the form of Ferrari. If Carlos Sainz was there, could they have done some team games, pincer moves, those types of things? We might have a very dramatic turn one. But I thought overall, the racecraft that he showed was definitely worthy of driver of the day. So I'll give it to him here. And honorable mention, my off-track one, for one, Mr. Valtteri Bottas and his cancer fighting calendar, which you can go check it out. All proceeds, I think, go to fight cancer and cancer research. It's a great thing. I may buy one, and we may put it up as background, on the podcast here, and we'll look at the ass man for all 12 months of the year.
Yeah, I took a look at it with my fiance right before we started recording here, and we got a pretty good laugh out of it. It looks very well done. It's very easy to find online. You do have to search by ass. But it comes up right away, and yep, you got 12 months of Valtteri Bottas's cancer fighting booty. So yeah, it might be worth it just to have it for the background when we record.
I love the fact that he just goes all in, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Vegas pun notwithstanding, but that he's gone completely over the top on that one. It's a lot of fun, and we'll miss Valtteri when he's no longer a driver. But that's some good stuff right there, I got to say. But anyway, now we will turn the page and we will get into predictions. And as I said before, yikes, we did not roll. We did not do very good at the craps table or the roulette wheel. I think we rolled pretty much as close to a 00 as you could. You, however, win the weekend, sir. You got 3 points. You got the lap times. You got the quality lap time. You got the fastest race time because they were faster than what we would thought. And you got P1 on the podium with Max. I only get 2 points. I did get two guys on the podium. I got Max in P1 and Checo in P3. But that was all I got. So none of our prop bets worked. Team USA got completely shut out. Our Williams theory kind of didn't exactly pan out there, even though I thought we were in really good shape considering we had a Haas in the top 10, we had 2 Williamses in the top 10. I was like, we got 3 potential bullets here.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan Sargent, the guy who only wants to score points in the U.S. So, why not? But not to be. So, yeah. I will, by our next preview, I will tabulate where we are, and I will let everybody know where the final showdown. Is it even a showdown? Are you Max Verstappen? And I just am afraid to look. We'll find out.
You've won the past bunch. This is definitely not a Max Verstappen situation.
Yeah, but you had a run there in the middle of the season of like 5 or 6 in a row.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I will retabulate. We will figure out where all of that sits. It is impossible to believe that we only have one more race to go. It is Abu Dhabi, and then it is over and out for 2023. Sometimes I didn't know if we would ever get to the end of this season, but here we are. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to find out exactly what happens. It's probably not the greatest of layouts. It's probably a lot more probably the more compelling stories are actually kind of what's happening in F2 and F3, because those championships will finally be all the way decided. The F3 championships decided. F2's got some stuff that's still going on with that. So we'll get into all that kind of in a preview, where I will let Mr. Cody take over the reins, and he will be running our Abu Dhabi preview to close out our preview schedule for the year. So we're excited about that, obviously. So good stuff to come. Cody, any final thoughts on anything before we hop on out?
Just that, I'm going to be a little sad to see this season come to an end. Max Verstappen is just going to win the race and ride off into the sunset and hang out in Monaco in the off season after winning pretty much everything. I'm in agreement with you that I think actually the F2 stuff might be a little more interesting. It always surprises me how big of a gap there is here in the F2 calendar, because it feels like there hasn't been an F2 race in forever. And now
Monza.
We're finally getting the finale of that. Yeah, Monza. So It's like, Max Verstappen was still on his 10 race winning streak at that point instead of his current 6 win streak. So that's how long ago that was. But yeah, there's actually, it seems like Teo Pourchaire is going to take that one. It would take some really big luck for Frederick Vesti to pull that one off, but at least it's still like mathematically possible. It's not like F1 where it hasn't been mathematically interesting for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, Austria. But anyway, yeah. So we will get into all of that as they do in Vegas, close the show down for the rest of the year. So amazing. Like I said, it's only one more to go, but we will get into all that next week. Thank you for sticking with us. For all of us, always fun to do this. I still enjoy doing it, even when the fandom annoys me. It's still okay. I'm okay. And we'll be back next week, and we'll do it again. So, as always, folks, stay safe. Happy holidays, in case we don't get a chance to talk about it. Thanksgiving in the U.S. is this Thursday. My God, did that come up quick? But anyway, enjoy your families. Be safe. Be good to one another. And as always, may all your laps be fast.